Oh yeah, real smart. All right. Oh, we going? We going? I guess we are. All right. Well, as always, wait for a minute or two. Let people come on in. Ooh, the light on this side of the shop is a lot worse. So, sorry about that. Hopefully you can see me okay still. But let's just start here in 1 minute. As always, hi everybody on Instagram as well. Um, may or may not be able to get through the whole broadcast with the Instagram feed up as always, so make sure you go on Facebook at BRB Adventures or Ski Eagle Crest. We got both of them going. But anyways, wait for maybe 30 more seconds here. Be good to go. Hope everybody's been doing well here in Juneau. We finally got some snow, got out of the rainy spell we've been in. Things seem to be pretty good today, or at least will be tomorrow. I don't have a great mountain report myself because I'm super busy right now, but I'll definitely get out Monday. So that'll be good. Cool. Well, today we're going to talk about mounting skis. And the cool thing about mounting skis is it's pretty scary, but it's pretty simple. And if you do it right, you really don't have anything to worry about because it's full of redundancy. Now, if you do it wrong, it instantaneously becomes a huge problem. And doing pretty much anything wrong on a mount is just right away really bad. One, because you have punctured your ski at that point, and that's an issue. You're going to have to go around that hole and all that good stuff. You're not going to be able to get the right mounting correct position anymore. And it's something that you really want to avoid. And so for the most part, you pretty much everybody brings their skis to a shop or snowboard to a shop to get mounted. Snowboards, you actually drill basically like a guiding coil or an insert into your snowboard, and so that's something that ski shops almost never have to do. Almost every snowboard is pre-mounted and everything. And then I really encourage snowboarders to set up their bindings themselves because that's more of a personal preference and less of a safety thing. So anyways, but skis, pretty much every skier, when they need to get a mount, they bring it into a shop. And the reason for that is we have this really, really awesome basically ability or freedom to have jigs, which are guides, and allow us to do these mounts pretty much perfectly every time. But before we get to jigs or anything like that, we actually have a sample ski, and I'm going to kind of cheat and work at the same time. Because this is actually a ski I have in the shop, and it's a really nice ski, and it's kind of a challenging mount, so it's a good one to have. But it's a really nice G3 ski, super nice example to have here. So anyways, I have a brand new ski here, but you don't always have a brand new ski. So let me bring back that test ski, the gross one. So sometimes you have a ski and you've already got holes in it and everything. And when you lay it down, you know, things might be okay. Or you have a ski that a binding is already on. And when you uncoil that binding and take that binding off, these holes are going to be raised. There's going to be little lips and all that kind of stuff all over the board. Might be other plugs in there. There's lots of plugs in this one. There's unfilled holes. There might be inserts. There might be all sorts of other things. And the number one first step is going to be to make sure that the bottom of that ski, or sorry, the top of that ski is totally flat. So you're never going to get a good mount if you can't make the ski binding completely flush with the ski. And flush with the ski is something you hear all the time. It's what the biggest thing to keep in mind with mounting skis is. You got to keep that totally flat so you can keep your binding totally flush with your ski. So step one, let's say you've got a little spot or something like that. I'm actually gonna take out one of these G3. Yeah, no, we'll do it. Yeah, I'll take out one of these skis. I'll put this guy in. So those are somebody's brand new skis. So gotta be a little bit more careful than with this demo ski. So you're gonna look at this now. And again, this is why the Instagram feed is not really relevant, because I can't really do this with you. But anyways, on the ski now, you've got these raised spots and all that good stuff that I was just talking about. Want to take a chisel or something like that, just get that flat. Easy as that. Get that totally flat. Now what you don't want to do is cut into that fiberglass too much. And that definitely is a real possibility. If you get into that fiberglass just a little bit, it's no big deal. You can just seal it up with some wood glue or some epoxy or something like that. But you want to just try to get that totally flat. I like to just line it up right on there and then just line it up flat and just push across it so it knocks that off. Now, after you do that, what you want to do is, but basically what you're doing here is you're getting everything ready to get your mount. And so you want to make sure everything is clean inside your ski at every step of the way. And so what I'm looking at right now, and I'm going to bring the computer and everything down here. What I'm looking at right now is a ski, and again, Instagram, please go to BRB Adventures, and I'm sorry I keep saying that, but it's really hard for me to show you guys what I'm seeing here. Anyways, you've got this little area now, and there's a little bit of stuff in it. So you take your little chisel or whatever you got and knock that out. Really good idea to have some canned air. Just get into that hole a little bit more, get everything out. I also have a vacuum. I would go through with a vacuum as well. Vacuum all this stuff out, get everything out of that ski. That's going to make you have the best mount possible. So then, and I'm not going to actually be mounting anything on this test ski, so I'm not going to do it except for this one hole. But then you want to plug these holes. Now, what is a plug? It took me way too long to get my plugs out, but anyways, this is a plug. So these are just little plastic little pieces, essentially, and they go into your ski, and they come in all sorts of different colors and stuff like that. They're usually pretty uniform in size, though. So this plug is going to go into your ski, and it's basically the same thing you do when you mount the ski. All you're going to do, and this is going to be really hard because I actually have to bang on the ski quite hard to make this happen. So this is going to be a little bit difficult because the computer and my camera and everything is going to fall down, I guarantee it. But just take your wood glue, get your wood glue into this hole here, and just a little bit is fine, just a tiny little bit. Get your plug, throw your plug in there, and just hammer it in. Now your ski is totally made to withstand all of that hammering and all that good stuff. No big deal. Now you've got that plug in there. You just let it sit for a second or two. Go back in with that chisel right here. Boom. Flat. Nice and flat. Now we're good. And again, ignore all this, but just right here, nice and flat. Good to go. So your first step's done on the ski at that point. You want to just make sure everything is clear. So now I'm going to go through this first the way the shop does it because it's way simpler and easier. It's going to let you guys kind of see how the process is done. And then I'll go through how you guys would do it if you were going to do it at home. So for me to do this, I'm going to gut back that new ski. And so, first things first, I've got a locking vise here. The other vise I have that I've been doing most of this workshop on, just a normal work vise, lets you sit things on top of it. this vise actually locks these skis down. Not perfectly, but pretty well. It's also got a little platform under here, so when I'm pushing down, I can have pretty equal weight on the ski and on that platform there, so I can drill straight holes and I'm not wobbly or anything like that. So really, really nice to have this tool. That's the first thing. So I get a pair of skis with some bindings, and I'm gonna go about this. Let me actually, look at that. I'm gonna sit down. Oh yeah. All right. So I'm gonna go about this process now. First things first, unbox the bindings. This is an actually really crucial step. Make sure you've got everything you need. So what I'm talking about is screws, parts, stuff like that. This right here is a Shift MNC binding. It's the binding we're going to be using today because it's just the one I have, but it's also a really nice binding to show. It's actually a pretty neat little mount. And it's one a lot of people have right now, so it might be extra useful for somebody who's looking for this mount. Anyways, these parts come apart. Right here, this whole tab will come off. Let's see, what other ones do you ever see? These actually don't come pre-assembled. They're 2 parts. So you want to make sure that both of those parts are there. You want to make sure you've got all your screws. So there's 4 screws in that right there. Wow, my viewership just died. Look at that. You got your 2 screws right here. And you've got your 2 pins, and I'll show you what these do. It's a unique thing for the Shift bindings, but it's neat how they go on in and how those things work. So I've got everything I need for this binding. We're good. That's your second step. Binding is totally complete. Now choose your jig. So, and obviously I don't have to look at this sheet when I'm mounting bindings every time, but I want to not forget anything or, you know, not think about something. So anyways, choosing my jigs. So now I'll turn this around and show you what I mean by a jig. And let's get the Instagram here. So this whole wall is full of jigs. These guys are pre-made with the correct hole patterns for certain bindings. So this one you can see, oh, so bad at camera aiming. It says Warden on it. Oh, even upside down and backwards. Oh, perfect. So this one says Warden on it, which means it is the jig for the Warden bindings. The one that we're going to be using today says Shift on it, because it's for the Shift MNC bindings. So select your binding, your jig. This is the right jig. This is the main reason why you go to a shop, just because they have this simple tool. Now these are around $200, sometimes more, sometimes less. But you can see why a normal person would have absolutely no need for this. You're better off just paying the $50 to get everything tested out and done right. But a shop, they'll pay for themselves very quickly, not only because you get correct mounts every time, but it cuts down the amount of time it takes to do that mount by easily 5-fold. And that's not an exaggeration. And I'll show you why, because I'll go through how you guys would hand mount the ski as well. So, got your jig, slide it on, select the right one. But how do I know it's the right one? Well, this one says Shift on it, and I've done this mount about 10,000 times, so I know it's the right one. But that's not necessarily true. A lot of those jigs, sorry, my feed just got weird. A lot of those jigs go for multiple different binding types, and sometimes they'll change the bindings and make a new binding with the same hole pattern, so you can actually reuse a different jig, stuff like that all the time. So the way that you make sure, absolutely sure that you selected the right jig is, and this is where this one's kind of hard to show, you want to match up your holes though. So this is the heel piece, or the heel plate. Put it on your holes. And look at that. It matches up perfectly. The screws, all 4, go right into the holes perfectly. So you do the same thing with the toe. And I would do that with the toe, but I actually can't with the Shift bindings because I'll show you why when we mount these, but you'll see why. But normally you do that with all the holes. Make sure everything lines up. You're good to go. Now, extra neat thing, you know, the second nice, really neat thing about these jigs is they're also adjustable. And so they move out and in, out and in. And so what you do is you get your boot, and you put it in, and you stretch it out until it's perfectly in line with the jig. Perfect. So now my boot is perfectly in my jig. It's really hard for me to show this to you, but it's exactly right. And now I can lock it down. So now we're locked down and we're in the right place so that when we mount, our jig has a boot center spot right there. All we gotta do is line that up with the boot center mark on the ski. And then we're pretty good. So we're almost ready to start drilling our holes. And that right there is the hardest part about paper mounting, is getting ready to drill your holes. So that's negated all the need for all that. One big question I get is, why can't you mount my skis with just the number of my boot sole length? So I'll show you kind of why I don't like to do that, and why I really demand to have a boot to mount your ski with. So if I put this in here, as you saw before, it lines up perfectly. The number that this reads, without looking at the boot sole length on here, the number that this reads is 334. My boot sole length is 335. So it's almost perfect. But there's a lot of jigs where that number really, really doesn't line up that well. This is a one binding jig, and so it is honestly pretty much perfect. But there's a lot of jigs where it's not. And so I demand to have a boot so I can actually physically put that in there, put the boot sole length in the middle, or sorry, put the boot sole midpoint in the middle on the line and go from there. So, you got your holes. You want to make sure that your jig is flat on your ski, flush to the ski. It's got little pins. You make sure both of those pins are on the ski. I can see, perfect. You're looking good. Everything looks good so far. Your next step is to select your bit. Now, I showed you guys this last week. This is what a ski drill bit looks like. This is the part that's going to go into the ski. This is going to nick off the hole and correctly cut the hole. And it's going to control the length and the depth of that hole. So this one is 9.5 millimeters by 4.1. 4.1 is the diameter of the hole. 9.5 is the depth of the hole. So why would you use what different bit lengths are there? There's really two. There's a 3.6 and there's a 4.1. The 3.6 you're going to use for mostly a wood cord ski. So a ski that's really easy to cut through with fiberglass and wood. You can use a smaller bit because it's going to just make it a little bit, just a tighter hole and just a little clean, easy cut. Small bit, big bit. Hard to see the diameter difference on a camera, but really easy to see it in real life. So a 4.1 bit is what you're going to use for anything with a titanium top sheet, an aluminum top sheet, any sort of metal top sheet. So this ski, I'm pretty positive, has some high-tech stuff in it. So I'm going to use a 4.1. So we start there. I'm going to use a 4.1. That's our drill diameter. Now, what length am I going to use? That's the second question. So you always want to use the deepest hole you can. It's going to give you the most screw security. That being said, it's not necessarily always got to be the deepest hole possible. It'll work just fine even if it's not. So you're going to start with the 9.5. That's the deepest hole you're typically going to drill. And what you do, this is going to be hard to show as well, but what you do get down the ski. You go next to where the back and front mounting holes are. You go to the sidewall and you check the depth. Now this is a raised mounting platform, which means that the side of the ski is quite low compared to the middle of the ski. It bumps up quite tall on the mounting platform, which makes this step extraordinarily hard because when you're matching it up, you're trying to make sure that you're not going to drill all the way through the ski. And so what you want to do is you want to basically find the point where you'd be drilling all the way through the ski and then look at the top of the bit and say, oh, does that go below the ski or not? And if it goes into the ski, then you're good. It's going to stop before then and you're going to come out. If it doesn't and you're still above the ski, that means you're going to drill right through that ski and you're going to dimple the ski. It's no good. So this one, when I go right down into where it would touch the metal to go through that ski, it still looks like it's not going to work. So I'm actually going to go one shallower. So I'm going to go to a 9 now. I'll move my Instagram feed here. So I'm going to go to a 9 now and do the same thing. And when I line it up, now it looks okay. It's still a little iffy. And honestly, this is the most important part, so I do take a lot of time on this. It's still a little iffy. But if I look directly at the ski, I think I'm good. Now for a touring binding like this, I really want a deep, nice hole. And that's why I'm kind of really trying to get this 9 to work. So, definitely just psyching myself out because I'm on camera. I've done this 1,000 times. But you just want to make sure you're exactly level with the ski right before the drill point. I think I'll be okay. I think I will be. Go back here, look. Go up to the middle here and look. I should be okay. Now, the reason why I extra know that I'm okay is because I highly doubt that this manufacturer would have made this ski that I couldn't drill a 9mm bit into. Just because most of the bindings that this ski is going to use are going to want that deep hole. So I'm going to select this 9mm bit. You know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 7.5, which is the next step down. What is going on? Okay, 9, 7.5. So this is my 9. This is my 7.5. I think I'm okay. So I think I need to use the 9, and so I'm really pressuring myself into using the 9. So, gonna get my 9mm bit. Now, when you're drilling at the skis, you always want to use a crisscrossing pattern. So you never want to drill holes that are next to each other, because if something were to happen with your jig and it were to move just slightly, and your holes are just so slightly off, what can happen is if you mount it holes next to each other, those will more likely be offset against the other ones on the other side, versus if crisscrossing holes are offset, it's more likely that you're going to be able to get that screw to go in anyways if you slightly mess up the holes. Now, the screw might be slightly sideways or something like that, which isn't great, but it's not going to be the end of the world for that happening. So, that's, yeah. So anyways, get your drill bit, make sure this is flush, make sure you're in here, and just drill your crisscrossing hole. So we go this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and then this. And what you'll feel is you'll drill and press down, and you'll feel it bite through and then come right out. And basically, right when you bite through, you can come out of the ski. So I'll show you what it looks like, and you'll be able to kind of hear what it sounds like too. Okay, your holes are drilled. Simple as that. Now, clean out your jig here. Now, first things first, clean your holes out. You got a bunch of debris and stuff in it. Nice little vacuum. Okay, so one of the big reasons why I wanted to show you guys a shift MNC binding is because it has a mounting spot that's right in the middle of the ski. And hopefully I can get my cameras to cooperate and you'll be able to see this. But it's really cool because this center strip of your ski is made out of something different than the side strips of your ski. Now, this mounting platform is made out of different harder material than the rest of your ski, which is made to respond. This mounting platform is made to be the most rigid and best spot to put your bindings to have the most security. So again, and I didn't really show this, but I vacuumed out my holes and they're all clean. They're all perfect, but if not, use that air, vacuum it out with the air, get everything out of those holes so they're totally clean. Now, if you're not comfortable or you don't know this already, you can feel the bottom of your ski at this point. Make sure you didn't dimple it. Make sure you didn't drill through. The reason why I didn't need to do that is I can see into the bottom of all these holes and I see wood. If you see wood, you're good. You didn't get through to the base or the core or through the core or anything like that. You're good. So all I see is wood here. Good to go. Good to get to my next spot here. Very relieving. Didn't mess up. Didn't drill through the ski. That's the most difficult part for sure, and scariest part for sure, is drilling into somebody's ski, 100%. Now it's all pretty easy peasy from here, to be completely honest. I had to turn off the fans in here, so 1 second, I'm gonna take this hoodie off because it is so hot. Sorry, the fans run all day because it gets so hot in here, but you can't hear anything with those fans on. So I have to turn them off for this. Anyways, so now in what order do I put my bindings in? And how do I do that most effectively? Well, with almost every binding, you're going to want to put your heel plate in first. This one's no exception. It's just the easiest one. It's usually just some sort of square mount like this. Easiest one to get in. So again, you don't need, oh, and if you didn't get these holes quite perfectly, ooh, I can show you. Hopefully you can kind of see there's the hole and then there's this little indented circle around it. That's the nick that part of the bit was cutting off, and that's really good. That's what essentially will help guide that hole and make it even better hole. So it's perfect to have all those, but sometimes the plastic parts on the top sheet will come up and they won't separate. If that happens, take that same tool and nick that off so you're totally flat, totally flush the ski as usual. So wood glue or binding glue, this is like SVST binding glue. I wouldn't just use normal wood glue. But there's a lot of different sources. You can figure out for yourself what kind of glue you want. This is binding glue. Just the tiniest little dab is fine of this stuff. And I like to dab onto the side of the hole so that it just kind of glides in there nicely and doesn't bubble up on top of the hole. Now this is kind of coming out really slowly, so I actually do want a little bit more glue, but that is almost never something I have to do. Just want to make sure you do actually have some decent amount of glue in there, or a small amount of glue. You don't need a lot. Get your posi drive, which somehow I didn't have yet, and then you don't want to be sitting down for this because you want to be able to have pressure flat down, straight down onto the ski. So I won't be able to show you with my face while I do this, but you'll hear me as I talk through this. Get it on. And crisscrossing. Always crisscrossing when you tighten. So tighten a little bit, get it in there. All right, now you can start going a little bit better. Get it a little bit further down. Just keep that same pattern. Try to get the same number of strokes, and just with a medium amount of pressure applying down. Now, this one is a really nice binding, again, for another reason. And that reason is this posi drive is gross. Do I have a towel? So that reason is that these actually have like little clicky things, basically. They're little ridges on these holes, and you can actually hear them as they click in, and the amount of pressure that you need is indicated by how hard it is to click them, which is super cool. So it's hard to see, but I'm going to apply down pressure and just with one hand twist, and I can just get one more click in. I don't know if you saw that. That's the right amount of pressure. So there, I've got a lot of pressure, so I'm going to come back to that one. Okay, so these three need to be tightened, so good, good, good. So what I did there is called the one hand trick. It's basically a rule saying that if you can't tighten it with one hand, you don't need to be able to be that tight. So for cosmetic reasons, I make sure that there's no glue poking out from underneath here. And there's not. That's just to make it look nice and be perfect. So we're good. We're tight. Make sure it's flush with the ski. It's the biggest thing you want to keep in mind is might feel tight, but you might have hit a nick in the wood or something like that. Always make sure the bottom of your binding is completely flush with the ski. That's what's going to make you actually have that good mount. So totally flush with the ski. All 4 screws are tight. We're good to go. From here with the shift bindings, I like to actually install my heel piece just to get that out of the way. It just slides right on. The brake is already attached to the front part. And then all you're doing is screwing this thing back for what seems like forever. And that's why I do it right here, is because it just seems like it takes forever, and I like to get it out of the way. So I'm just going to do this real quick. Since we are doing this whole mount, I don't want to skip any steps. I told you, it's forever. Okay, we're gonna call it good there until we know what our forward pressure is like with the front of our ski. So now we're gonna go and install the toe piece here. So this toe piece is pretty interesting. It's a neat one. And sorry, it is so hot. That's why I'm so thirsty. This toe piece is an interesting one. The way this toe piece works is you have this pin and it fits into there. And when you install the binding, you install the pin slide the binding in, and then install the binding. So you'll see what I mean here, but if you just watch what I am doing, I'm going to install that pin first, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what they actually call it. Probably something dumb. Again, pressure straight down and into the ski. Perfect. So, I forgot to mention that after each step, you can check the bottom to see if you have dimpled the ski, but it's pretty uncommon. And yeah, if you didn't drill through your ski, it's most likely you're not going to end up dimpling your ski. But yeah, the other thing, if you over tighten your ski, you will strip the hole, and so you'll spin and spin and spin. Now, this front one, it's almost it's probably 50-50 on skis whether it'll take or not. So this is flush and it's down with the ski, but it won't take. So it's still got some give in it. And the reason for that is that this middle part is made of a different material. And that material isn't made to take that hard screw. And so when it goes in, it just turns and turns and turns, and it never actually really binds in. That is fine, because the way the ski binding is made, it doesn't need that independently. So remember how I said there's a lot of redundancy in ski bindings. There's 4 pieces of redundancy in this heel piece, 4 screws. And in this toe piece, there's 5 pieces of redundancy. So it's, if you strip one or you spin one, it's, not great, but it's not the end of the world at all. Once you start getting into 2 or 3, that really sloppy. But once you start getting into more, then that can become a bigger problem. So put this on the pin. Sometimes it can be a little annoying. There we go. What is going on? Oh, so this is another thing. Sometimes they come installed incorrectly, which is what's happened here. This pin is not installed correctly. So I actually have to pop this out, and I have to install it correctly. So you can see I have to pop that out. Oop, I installed it incorrectly again. Get this little tab underneath. And this is something I should have done before I put glue in that hole. But that wood glue is not fast drying glue at all. Typically you don't want to ski on a ski less than an hour or 2 after you've mounted it. This being a huge pain in the butt. Jesus. There we go. So now it's good. Now I can throw this in. Yeah, that's how that should work. Tighten these front screws down. This is when it gets cool. So get these screws down in here. Don't over tighten them. And then slide this forwards. Boom. Make sure it's in place. And now, even though it's underneath and you can't see them at all, these 2 screws have the holes underneath them and are good to go. Now, you've got your binding installed. Everything is flush. Perfect. Good to go. Figure out your din. If you know how to read the chart, that's how you figure out your din. If not, you bring it to a shop. That's how you figure out your din. And the shop will test it for you. But I'm going to figure it out for this person since I'm doing it right now. 335, 265 pounds, 5'10". LM335. This din's going to be a 6.5. So the heeled in is right here, and it's red back here. Let's give her a 6.5. Toed in's right up here. It's red right up here. Give her a good old 6.5. Forward pressure. Go. Forward pressure is red right here, and it is almost smack dab where it needs to be. Good. And last thing, toe height card. And the reason I'm breezing through these is because if you don't know how to correctly do all these things, you should not be watching this video and then doing them yourself. You should be going to a shop to get them to do it. It's too much to explain. It's different for every single binding. So you just need to come to a shop and get us to set your toe height for you. So anyways, gonna set the toe height real quick here. Boom. It's a little high. Go. I don't know what this yellow crud in here is, but anyways, now we're good. Now we've got a ski binding that is totally set up and good to go. Now, I'm going to switch these skis so that we can talk about home mounting. And then afterwards, I'll probably keep the feet on while I finish this second ski and let you guys watch if you want. And answer questions if you want. But stop narrating and all that good stuff, because it'll take a little bit to go over mounting this way. So, okay. Oh, okay. So, let's say you don't have a jig. This is out of the picture. And you want to mount your skis. Well, first things first, can I cheat? Can I find a jig online that somebody has made that will help me? I'll show you what those look like. So here's two good ones. This is a really popular one actually for free ski bindings. And you can see it's just the whole pattern set up. God, doing this backwards is so hard. Whole pattern set up and tail pattern set up. You basically center it on your ski and go from there. Some of them a little bit better, have guiding lines, make it easier to center it on your ski. That's going to be the hardest thing for you to do, is to center your ski every time. What you end up doing with these is basically cutting them so that you can put it over your ski. Let's say I need my 4 toe pieces, put it over my ski, have it cut, and then over and over and over again you measure from the tip to the side. You find a good spot and you measure from this middle line to the side. You measure it both times, and when you get it to a spot that's hooked up correctly, you tape it down. And when you tape it down, you then use a punch. Looks like this. And you just hammer it in. And when you punch that in, that's now created a really good guiding line, so that when you drill, you have a better guide spot for your drill. But as you can imagine, drilling that absolutely straight every single time is quite difficult without any sort of guide, any sort of jig, anything like that. And so really it sounds like it's a simple process, but getting something like this to sit exactly even on your ski and then to drill exactly down on your ski 10 times essentially, maybe even more, maybe sometimes less, is really hard. Now, I'll show you one more type of jig here. So, some bindings, and this is the one for the adrenaline binding series, they'll come with something like this. This is really hard for you guys to see. You can actually see it better on Instagram on my camera. But this has hole patterns in it, just like the other one, but it's see-through. How much better is that than the paper one? A million times. Like night and day. This makes it maybe twice as hard as with the jig. With paper, as I said before, it probably takes 4 or 5 times as much as with the jig. This has little guiding lines, little ruler lines on the bottom, so you can just put it in a way where those lines are equidistant from the edges. Tape it down, punch your holes just like before, drill it, you're good. So, not perfect, but if some bindings will come with something like this, that's a very good alternative. Doing it with paper, though, really hard. There's a lot of good references, though, for paper jigs. God, I'm trying to think of a reason why you wouldn't be able to take it to a shop. I'm thinking like you're out somewhere crazy and your binding came off or something, but then do you have like a drill and like bits and stuff like that? Probably not. So, I don't know. That's why I really are just like for everybody's safety, not safety, but for everybody's security, may as well take it to a shop. It's like one of the cheaper procedures you can have done at $50 usually or something like that. Worth it to just get a professional, guarantee it. The other thing is, and it does happen very, very, very occasionally, but if I dimple your skis, I buy you brand new skis. If you dimple your skis, G3 laughs at you. And so that's a big reason to bring it to a shop too, is if something happens, then you're totally reimbursed. So, what else? Oh yeah, so there's some other alternatives for mounting bindings too. Oh yeah, exactly. If you live in a remote community, that's a really good point. Yeah, if you have like a touring setup in a remote community or something like that and you need to, I would say it'll be worth your money and time to still buy the proper ski bits, as opposed to doing the old-fashioned way, which is to get kind of a normal 4.1 millimeter bit, and then this isn't exactly how it goes, but you tie tape to it, and that stops it the same way that nick does, which is how a lot of times they've done it. But anyways, yeah, awesome that you guys are watching from Petersburg. Sorry I didn't think about that, especially living here in Southeast Alaska. But yeah, super cool. So yeah, it definitely is worthwhile to know this skill. Definitely if you know, it's something where it doesn't really take all that long. It's mostly like if a shop has backlog that it'll take a little bit. But anyways, yeah. So there's a couple of different things that you can do with mounting that are different than that traditional mount. And the first one is something called a quiver killer. So this is a quiver killer. And when we talk about a quiver, we're talking about your ski quiver, which is for whatever reason how they say like your ski setup. And so this is a quiver killer. And it's an insert. And it's threaded. The Instagram, see a little threaded insert. Wow, that's really bad with that light back there. There you go. A little threaded insert here. And so instead of drilling a normal hole in your ski, you'd actually use that bit I was just showing you to drill a much bigger hole. That's the diameter of this. Didn't show you that very well. It's the diameter of this. And then you would take epoxy and line the wood of that hole and essentially install this. It's complicated. It's not super complicated, but it's not super duper simple either. So anyways, you would install this. Now, what's the advantage of that? Why would you just drill a bigger hole and just install this metal piece in your ski? Well, the advantage of that is now, instead of mounting with normal mounting screws, you're going to mount with killer screws, which is something like this. And this killer screw is still really stable, but it threads right into these quiver killers. And it threads right down to the bottom. And so by replacing all of the screws in your binding and putting quiver killers in, you now can use the same binding for multiple sets of skis, which is pretty cool. It's actually really cool. I don't know how much I really care about its functionality, but there are really, really expensive bindings like the shift bindings and stuff like that, where you might want to do that. And back in the day, it was a pretty useful thing as well. It was kind of a primitive version of it, and then now it's a pretty standard technology. But quiver killer is pretty cool. And the reason it's called a quiver killer is because it cuts down the number of things you need in your quiver. So you need one pair of bindings, and then you can have 50 pairs of skis with these quiver killers in it. And any day of the week, you can take that binding, get a different pair of skis. So I think if you have 5 pairs of skis that you want, throw these quiver killers on. You can use all 5 pairs of those skis with 1 or 2 pairs of bindings. You know, that's pretty sweet stuff. Very similar to a Healy coil. Healy coils, kind of a primitive quiver killer. They're used in slightly different ways. I won't go into them too much. What we will go into is an insert. Now, similar concept here, but different reason why you would do this. So this is a plastic insert, and it looks a lot like that quiver killer. God, I'm so bad at this. Looks a lot like this quiver killer, but it's made of plastic. And what this would be used for is, let's say one of your holes is stripped, but the other ones are not. Now, typically, if you take a binding out of a set of holes, you cannot just scrape those holes and put it back in. That is garbage. That is going to lead to some dangerous situations where your binding could strip out stuff. A lot of stuff could happen. That's bad. That's bad, 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 bad. You don't want to do that at all. But let's say somehow you had a situation where 3 of your holes were okay and 1 of your holes was stripped. Well, let's say you drilled 1 of your holes slightly wrong and you need to remedy it. And that's probably the most likely scenario for talking to you guys, actually. So let's talk about that. Let's say you drill 3 holes and one of them is just not lined up. Your 4th hole is not lined up. What you can do is you can drill a bigger hole and put a plastic insert in it. Now, this thing is rated to just as much torque as your binding screw is when it's installed correctly. Do the same thing, put that epoxy out the outside, except this time you use a lot less. But same basic idea. Epoxy around the outside, drill it out, push it in, pound it into the ski, get that thread to work. But then, because this is plastic, it's actually quite a bit smaller than your screw size. And so then when you have this mounted in and you put your screw in, it's basically made this into a thread for your hole. So it's super duper secure. Where it is super secure is for 1 hole. Where it's not secure at all is for more than 1 hole. So these are rated extremely well for 1 hole. You cannot use this for more than 1 hole. So that's why it's kind of hard to find a scenario where you would need it, because the second that you pull all 4 of those binding screws out, you're going to have to replace you're going to have to plug those spots anyways. Exactly, if you make a misinstall, or there's other reasons why it could happen, plastic inserts are really cool to be able to kind of fix that without having to change a different. The thing is, then you'd have to change your boot center spot on the ski, and if you really, really want to avoid that, then plastic inserts your best option for that. And then the last thing I want to talk about before I just finish up this mount here is something called the cast system. So the cast system is pretty cool. It is essentially a way to change out your bindings mid-flight. So the way it works is with the pivot. So I'm gonna have to kind of use specific things and names to describe this. It's a really high level system. It's made for really advanced big mountain skiers and stuff like that. So, anyways, what the cast system is it's made with the pivot, and the look pivot binding has a heel piece that has lateral release, and that's why it's made with that one. And so you essentially replace the toe piece center, like take apart the binding and put it back together using a different part for the AFD plate and the toe plate. And then instead of installing, so you install the heel piece like normal, and then instead of installing the toe piece directly onto the ski, you install this metal sheet and with 4 pins in it that are like a heftier pin, a big pin. It's like that big. It's a hefty pin. And then that toe piece that you replaced, it fits right into that pin spot. It's got holes for that pin where you put it in and you shove it back and it locks in. And once you get your forward pressure set with your ski, it should lock in just like normal, which is awesome. So that's your downhill, is you've got now this full pivot setup. Well, you could have just mounted a pivot on there, right? Well, where that comes into play is when you're going uphill, you can take that pivot toe piece off and you can replace it with a kingpin toe piece. And a kingpin is a pin binding. It's an ultralight toe. It's actually not like the lightest, but it's an ultralight toe piece. And so the advantage there is you have the ultralight toe piece going uphill, and then going downhill, you have the security of a normal toe piece, which is awesome. So that is essentially the, that's like the most advanced option that you can have for ski mounts. And it's pretty cool, the number of different things that you can do with this. But if anybody else has any questions, again, I really appreciate everybody tuning in every week for this. I've done this for 6 weeks now, and every week I can't really believe how good the response is. Getting response now from other communities and stuff like that is super cool. Really appreciate you guys all sticking with me through my camera not working and trying to figure out the internet and all that good stuff. Yeah, if there's anything about any topic anybody wants to know, feel free to ask me now. I'm going to actually mount this second ski up and let you guys see how that second ski mount goes. Let you see, if I'm just doing it normally, how quickly and easily this process can be done. And again, feel free to keep chirping at me through Instagram or through Facebook. But put my jig back on, find my center mark. Make sure the jig is flat. Put my boot back in just because it's been a little while. Make sure it's still in there. Good. I've already got my bit. I've already know that my hole placements are good. I know that everything's good to go. Make sure it's centered over the bar underneath. Let's drill it. You're done with your bit here. Take that away. Put your drill away. Get this out. Put your jig away. It's going to be really loud here for a second. I will talk to you about the center mark of the ski in 1 second. So, finding the center mark of the ski is it's kind of a hard question. So most skis will have a recommended center mark or a boot center mark. So there's like a gold mark. It's super obvious on this ski. There's no other reason why it would be there. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a big gold mark right here that shows you. If you don't have that, the manufacturer will pretty much always put it on like online on the specs or something like that, how far it is from the tip to the middle point. But the classic old school way of doing it is to take the distance from the tip of the ski to the back of the ski where the ski leaves the snow. So if there's back rocker, you do it from the point where the ski leaves the snow. Then you take that distance, divide it in half, and then go from the front rocker point to that half mark. And that's your core center mark of the ski. That was kind of a lot. You can rewind and think about that over and over. But it's essentially taking your 2 rocker points, averaging them, cutting them in half, and then finding the middle point of your ski from there. That being said, the core center, recommended center, is typically seriously like the spot. Like these skis are made to have that sweet spot. And if they're telling you that this is the sweet spot of the ski, unless you're using the ski for something that it was not intended for, which is fine. If you buy a big mountain ski and you're trying to carve with it, sure, go +1 on it. No, that makes sense. +1, +2 on it. But if not, that recommended point, the point that is actually marked on the ski is 9 times out of 10 gonna be your best spot. So yeah, so I've got my 4 holes here. Let's go back down. It's just funny trying to keep both of these cameras going. It's pretty hilarious. Cool, so I've got my holes. I'm gonna do my rear holes. Posi Drive loves to run away. How embarrassing it would have been if I messed up a mount on this. Oh yeah, the Violis are hard because they're so rockered out on the front there that yeah, it's real hard. But I'm pretty positive that they have recommendations on their website. Or you can give them an email as to where that point is, because a lot of times they'll they'll have like an actual set point. You just gotta work a little bit harder to find it. They always know what the sweet spot of the ski is basically what I'm trying to say. Those are sweet skis though. Good for that deep stuff. Sometimes there's like a mark on the sidewall too. Like sometimes they do a weird thing where it's just like this nick on the sidewall. I've seen that quite a bit as well. Let's get this heel piece on. This is the part that takes forever, so I'm just gonna have you looking at nothing because I'm just gonna be turning this Posi Drive counterclockwise for about 65 minutes. Just so everybody knows, all of these are up on YouTube. They're up on my Facebook, BRB Adventures. They're up on my YouTube, BRB Adventures. A lot of you guys have been coming to the shop saying hi. I really appreciate that. Carissa, if you end up in Juneau at any point, come say hi for sure. Love to have other Southeast people. We have a lot of people actually. Like, that's one of the things I really like about working at Eagle Crest is we do really try to work with like Petersburg and Sitka and Haines and a lot of the remote communities to try to get people out here. Just pretty neat. Get my DIN set up to 6.5 and we go. And let's install my toe piece. So, toe piece. Let's go down. Get this pin first. Again, really hard to get this thing to bite correctly. I think I actually got it this time, which is good. Leave it there. Got my other holes. It's funny, the left and right of this ski are made out of totally different things. And you would never know that that was the case unless you've drilled into it. I guess that's another cool thing about mounting your own skis is you do get to like see inside your ski, which is most people don't have that ability or that, you know, that chance. Flush, keep this thing flush with the ski, get nice and tight. That's excess glue, get rid of that. I'm actually going to be here for a while working after this, so you guys would just watch me work all night. It'd be super fun. I'll close this after I'm done with this mount. I'll say goodbye to everybody. Get these screws nice and tight. Get that in to 6.5. Okay. Now do my toe height and my forward pressure. Forward pressure is good. Toe height's good. Last things last. Check for dimples. Make sure you didn't mess up. It never happens. You're always good. We're good. We're looking good. Look at that. Ultra light G3 setup there. Now, in a shop, when I do your skis, or when most shops do your skis, fortunately there's some that don't actually do this. But when most shops do your skis, they have to binding test them to make sure that your bindings are working correctly out of the box, make sure they're not malfunctioning. That's actually like a full regulation. So if somebody ever says that you have to still get your bindings tested, or they didn't set your forward pressure and toe height and stuff like that, you have to go get that set before you can ski them. It's not going to work out otherwise. So now I have to do a full binding test on these skis, even though they're brand new. Make sure they're really nice. But that is the mounting process for skis. Again, I know a lot of you guys have been here all 6 weeks. I know there's a lot of people who will watch this after the fact. Really awesome having you guys. Thanks to Eagle Crest again for sponsoring all this. We're going to try to do this in person whenever COVID is not a thing anymore, and get a real clinic going on, and have that one recorded too, and make it actually good quality and produce it and all that kind of stuff. So, but again, everybody, thanks for being here. It's probably just like my mom and Carissa and, like, you know, Carrie. But I'll see you guys next time, and thanks as always.